You just can't mess with us 90s kids. Let me tell you why. Hey everyone, welcome to Open Mic with Janky. I'm your host Janky, and this is my channel. Growing up in the 90s. Today I'm gonna do a little part two about growing up in the 90s and why you can't mess with us 90s kids. So when I say 90s kids, who do I mean? People that were born typically in the 80s and did their growing up in the 90s. Let me talk to you about how we're built a little bit different. First of all, let's talk about cars. Now, a standard car, has the driver, passenger, seats in the back. Back in the day, we had just seat, bench, an Oldsmobile, just one long bench in the front where you have your dad or your uncle or, somebody driving, perhaps another adult sitting in the front, and you're right there in the middle, loose, no seatbelts, no nothing. You're riding around in the front seat while they're driving wherever you're going. Van. All it took was for one person in your family to have a van. And as soon as they opened the door, you all hopped right in. You figured out where to sit. You were like, "Where's my seat?" No, you sat on someone's lap, so edge of someone's kneecap, on the cooler. You sat wherever there was space, and you all went together as a family. The amusement park, regular park, wherever you're going, you all figured it out. And when that door opened for all of you to come out, it was like, those clown cars. Well, we're not clowns, we're people. We all came out of the car one by one. We hopped right out. Station wagons. The kids sat in the back, in the trunk, looking out the back window. Loose. No seatbelts, no nothing. Nowadays, there's all these rules and regulations. And don't get me wrong, I get it. We follow all the rules because safety, first and foremost, and we don't want to get no ticket. We gotta, my kids are young, so obviously they're still in car seats, which makes sense. It has to be strapped at a certain place right over here, and how many fingers you'll be able to fit through for the tightness. It has to be manufactured in the last 5 years, I believe, or they won't even let you go home with your kid. Weight, height. Again, we follow, but there was none of that back in the day. We were loose in the car. Even our moms, they brought us home holding us in the back seat. They would wrap us up in a towel, held us, and brought us home. We weren't strapped in a car seat. That's how it was back in the day. We're tough as shit because of the way we grew up. Which brings me to my next point, and a lot of people will be able to relate to this. If you are a 90s kid, and especially if you got immigrant parents, you got beat. I'm generalizing. I know there's exceptions. There's not everybody. I get it. I'm just speaking, like I said, my experience and what I saw around me. Typically, if you had immigrant parents, you grew up in the 90s, you got slapped around. You definitely got yelled at. Now you got that look. If you were at somebody's house and you were acting out, you got that look like you knew you better act right immediately. Now, let me make this clear. I don't condone violence on children, nor would I ever put my hands on my kids ever. We parent very differently now because we know what it was like. So we would not do that, but we lived through it, and we're not crying about it today. We turned out fine, and we're not butthurt about it. We parent very differently today. I'll speak for myself. We're all about communication, talking things out, explaining, being there, showing up. Now, I'm not knocking our parents and the way they brought us up. They did the best they could with the resources they had. Here they are trying to put food on the table, shelter over our heads. They're busy, they're working. They came from different countries, different backgrounds. They saw their parents the way they parented. So they did things their way according to what they saw. That's okay. We're breaking some of those generational cycles. That's what makes us so much tougher. We went through it, we turned out fine, and we're fixing it. Cool. Not only did we turn out fine, we brag about it today. I have another friend. I'm like, yeah, I got beat back in the day. And she's like, yeah, me too. And we're telling each other stories. You connect over that. So weird. That's why I say 90s kids are tough as shit. You can't mess with us. Now let's talk a little bit about some of the toys that we played with back in the day. I remembered, and my husband doesn't remember this. I don't know why, because I think it was really popular. It was called Devil Sticks. You had two sticks, one in each hand, and then there was a third stick in the middle. We had tassels at the end, and you had to kind of flip it around, flip it up in the air, and do all these tricks with it. You guys remember that? Yes or no? We were outside. We were outside playing with those sticks, 3 sticks, and that kept us outside for hours. Another one was I don't know if it was pronounced Diablo or Diabolo. It was like the concept of a yo-yo. You had two sticks again in your hand with a string that attached to both sticks. And then in the middle, you had this hourglass type of cup hanging in the middle of your string, and you were doing this yo-yo type of motion, and then you were swinging it up in the air and you're trying to catch it again with your strings. I'll tell you about a story of what happened to me. I was outside playing with my Diablo, and I wanted to do that trick where you pull the two sticks like this, and your string will then launch the hourglass into the air, and then you have to try to catch it. And then the sun glares in my face, and then as I'm trying to catch that cup, it hits me, pam, right in the face. And I was okay. I picked my sticks back up and I continued playing. We were outside all the time, playing games, using our imagination, our creativity. What else was there? There was Polly Pockets. This is part for the girls, mostly. Polly Pockets, there were toys this big, but I don't think there was no choking hazard sign on that box. You were playing with these tiny little toys. And even if you had younger siblings, they were all over the house. Nobody cared. Nobody said anything. Today, I have a 4-year-old and a 10-month-old. I'm making sure there's no small pieces. I'm putting those away separately, making sure that he's not going to be able to access them, which makes sense, right? Like, this is the things that we do today. But back in the day, it didn't matter. You just had to know not to put that shit in your mouth. We're built different. We're built different. Tamagotchis. Oh my God. You guys remember it was like a small, round, oval or egg-shaped digital toy where it was a little character and you had to keep it alive. We were parenting in the 90s with our toys. You had to feed it. You had to clean it when it pooped. You had to give it medication when it was sick. You had to literally keep that thing alive. Which brings me to a side note. If you are an older sibling, meaning obviously you have younger siblings, you parented them. You parented them. You made sure they did their homework, checked their agendas, because you know your parents were probably not paying much attention. Again, like I said, I'm not knocking them. They were busy working, trying to put food on the table, learning a different language. Here in Quebec, not only were they trying to learn English, they were trying to get by in French as well. Shout out to Quebec immigrant parents. Nonetheless, you were parenting your younger sibling, and you were also breaking down some barriers for them. Some of those rules that your parents might have had as, their eldest or older child. You broke some of those down for sure. All to say, we were outside. We were playing our devil sticks or Diablo. No, we weren't inside watching kids unbox toys. We went to the park. You drank out, we drank out of the little fountain at the park. We drank out of the hose. Maybe kids still do that these days. I'm not sure. But I know back in the day, we did that with no problem at all. Let's talk a little bit about the games that we played. You guys remember Nintendo? The Duck Hunt game. You were shooting at the ducks in your screen. That's crazy. I can't even fathom giving my children anything that looks like a gun, but hey, it was a different time. Mortal Kombat. The taglines in that game that you played, which was a fighting game where you're literally killing each other, and I love Scorpion. Get over here. He comes and he slashes you. Or finish him. Literally at the end of the game, when there was like the person was on their last, finish him. That's the games we played, and we turned out fine. We weren't no fucked up kids. Street Fighter, doing its twirls and tricks, and we played those games, and we went on our merry way. We went to the park, and we slid down the slides, and we swung, and we were just normal kids. And that's it for today's Growing Up with the 90s segment. I didn't even touch on music and fashion. Wait till I get to that next week. You're going to love it. Also, before you go, if you like, what I'm doing here, you like my content, please like, subscribe. It's free for you. Makes a difference for me. I would really appreciate that. And I can keep this going, keep more content coming out as I go, especially for things that you guys like. And it seems like growing up in the 90s is a hot topic. I really appreciate all the love and support. I'll see you guys next week talking about music.